Every episode of D1 Photographer captures the chaos and angles of game day, but I've only been telling you half the story. Today, you'll see my full post-game workflow, how I sort, select, and export final images, but most importantly, I will be showing a detailed step-by-step breakdown of how I edit my photos start to finish, because great photography isn't just about what you capture, it's about what you do with it after. Shoot's done, I'm home, now the post-processing marathon begins. Before I even touch Lightroom, I plug my camera straight into the TV with an HDMI cable and start to cull in camera. Importing 700 RAW files into Lightroom is just not happening for me. That's why I run my first pass on the TV, cutting the junk early and saving the space. Normally I shoot way tighter, but with NBA and pro guys back on campus running full workouts, that shutter stayed hot. After the first cut, I had a tight batch ready for a Lightroom upload. I've been editing straight on my MacBook Pro. The Liquid Retina display closely matches what people see on their phones, so the color and detail translate the best that I have personally tested. Straight off the import, we have our full library of photos. I first run through every photo to dial in the crop, no sliders, no tweaks, just framing. It doubles as a second sort. If it doesn't hold up in 4x5, it's gone. And yes, I go shot by shot. Sounds wild, but it works. You'll also see me pushing in and out, zooming in on faces to check sharpness, and possibly displaying an editing tick that I've developed and just can't shake. As I rip through the gallery at hyper speed, I'm not just trimming fat, I'm also noting potential heaters. Every shoot needs a few quick turnaround edits, so this gives me a head start on figuring out what those first selects might be. Now, with the framing complete and 336 trimmed to 225, it's time to spin back and start editing those frames we identified. The first of those frames is this portrait of Isaiah Stevens, who currently plays for the Sacramento Kings. Perfectly in focus with good framing, and since he's a fan favorite, this one's an easy place to start. The lighting in Mobi is brutal, so we're a bit underexposed out the gate. I start by bumping exposure and clarity to lift overall brightness. In turn, this makes our photo grainy, so I link up with my bestie denoise to try to eliminate that. Once denoise does its thing, we've got a clean base, and when I zoom in on the eyes, we're tack sharp. To build on that, I bump clarity and add a touch of dehaze. Dehaze is technically for clearing fog, but it also deepens shadows, boosts contrast, and adds saturation, which actually works great on indoor hoops when used in moderation. Before diving deeper into base edits, I throw in a couple masks, starting with the background. It's a little too bright, so I pull down texture and clarity and add some dehaze. Shooting at 200mm f2.8 already gives us a nice background separation, but this mask softens it even more. Next up is a quick eye sclera mask to brighten and clean up the whites of the eyes. Super subtle, but it makes a big difference. Then I stack on an iris and pupil mask. His pupils are naturally dark, so I max out clarity, texture, and highlights with just a touch of contrast and warmth to pull in more reflection. Flip the before and after and you'll see it. Small moves, but the eyes are really starting to pop. Looking closer, he has some strong highlights through the center of his face. To balance that out, I added a soft mask in the lower left, bringing the brightness down to create a bit more contrast in the lighting. To push the lighting even more, I masked his hair and added highlights. I love doing this on dark hair. It pops off the background and makes the overhead light source feel super intentional. Just make sure to give your guy a little fade from the skin. Our final touch is dialing in the skin tone. For darker complexions, I'll warm things up with a bit of saturation and contrast to bring back that natural color. This needs to be subtle, so I mask all visible skin and apply the effect at just 13%. Anything stronger feels overdone. Zooming in on the final, skin's vibrant, hair pops just enough, and everything feels well lit. I'm happy with how this one turned out, so our last move is to flip the photo green, and just like that, one down, 224 more to go. That first photo was edited from scratch, and I do the same for the first few selects. Here's another one as A. Same process, but this time I'm boosting highlights on the shirt and sharpening the court floor with added clarity. The real goal is consistency across gallery, but those early edits are always custom. Lighting shifts with lenses, settings, or even small court movements. Once I wrap those initial selects, I exported 12 I thought were the strongest or most versatile for posting and sent them off to our social team. Now each edited photo took about 7 minutes, which means this pace would take over 26 hours to finish them all. Yeah, that's just not happening. It's 7:43 p.m. I need these done tonight, so here's how I speed things up. The biggest time saver is building a mini preset and reusing it across similar shots. This one's a perfect match. I'm using a denoise value of 40, the same base edits, and 3 quick masks, one for background, one for the eye whites, and one to bring some highlight back into the hair. There's nothing too custom or wild, which makes it a perfect candidate to copy and apply this base look to other images. We'll hit Command-C to copy the settings. Here's what to keep in mind. Make sure to exclude the crop, otherwise all that work we did up front is gone. Uncheck the remove tool, that's only used for retouching blemishes, and keep all the masks selected. Since they're smart masks, Lightroom will automatically repopulate them onto your new image. Scrolling over to the shot of Joel Scott, he's in a similar position as the last frame, so it will paste the copied settings. What normally takes 6 minutes now takes 6 seconds, and we've got a solid baseline to build on. Because I'm obsessive when it comes to edits, I still make a couple tweaks to almost every image. Here I toned down the eye whitening just a bit and added a small exposure bump to the bottom left. Other than that, the copied settings held up great and saved me a lot of time. Now we're making solid progress into the workflow. Next, I'll show you how to sync settings without breaking your preset and how to dial in lighter skin tones to stay true to color. Then we'll tag everything in metadata, batch export with structure, and break down my black and white process before final delivery. So let's keep it rolling. To sync settings without losing your preset, here's a shot of Isaiah Stevens mid-smile. We paste in our preset, make a small exposure bump mask in the lower corner, and it overall looks good to me. The next frame is only seconds apart from the last. Instead of pasting the preset and rebuilding the exposure mask, we'll use this sync button to carry over both the original preset and any additional tweaks without losing the copy. Select the first image, shift click to the second, then hit the sync button. Make sure all your masks and adjustments are checked, just leave out the crop and remove tools. Once synced, the image looks good straight out of the gate. No extra tweaks needed, and our original preset stays saved in our clipboard. Now in sports, especially basketball, skin tones can react wildly under stadium lights. Some players lean to olive, others to red. In this shot, Joel Scott's looking a little too saturated, pushing red. So let's rein that in. We'll head to our masks panel, select people, then activate facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, lips, and facial hair. Once those are all checked, go ahead and create the mask. Since the skin's a little too warm and red, we'll cool it down by lowering temperature, bumping magenta, and dropping exposure slightly. Already it's looking way closer to what the eye actually sees, and when you flip to the before and after, it's wild it ever even looked that off. The full editing process looked a lot like what you've already seen, and at 1:16 a.m. we're way ahead of that 26-hour pace, but still we're not in a great spot, especially as we enter the part I dread the most. To make these photos searchable on websites and hard drives, we've got to tag each one using Lightroom's metadata editor. It's grueling, it's tedious, but it has to get done. This part lives in the library tab of Lightroom, where you'll add your tags using the keyword panel. If you've already built the tags, they'll autofill like Google Sheets, but it still takes time. The only real shortcut is knowing your roster by heart, which I'm usually pretty good at, but we are early on in the season, so give me some grace. I used to name all my photos after the export, just tagging names on at the end of the file, but SmugMug is like TSA, and not editing the metadata is like having no real ID. They just ain't recognizing you, my boy, so I name everything properly up front, first and last name plus the event. For this one, I tagged it practice. If we were playing North Carolina, for example, I tag it North Carolina as well. Once every image is tagged, it's time for the first of 2 exports. All the color frames first, then the black and white ones later. Select all your images, go File, then Export. I label them as consistent as possible. I start with the sport and year, followed by the event. As you can see, this was my second practice of the season. Export settings are 100% quality at 300 DPI. Then make sure that is getting sent to a specifically named folder, which I've already set up. Then hit export. While this exports for a couple minutes, let's reflect. We started with 731 shots. The TV pass cut it to 336, cropping and composition brought it to 225, and after final edits, we locked in at 175 final color images. The export finished, I checked the folder, everything was there. My brain, however, was not. At that point, keeping my eyes open was impossible, so the black and whites and final upload would have to wait until sunrise. After dreaming about Lightroom, it was time to open it back up. Morning's mission is some high contrast black and whites. I get asked about these a lot, so I'll walk you through my basic process, and if you want a true deep dive, just drop a comment down below. First, I drop saturation to 0 on the first image and sync it across the entire batch. Now we're in a black and white world. With color exports already finalized and export, I scan through to delete any shots that don't translate well. It's a subjective process. I look for depth, texture, or emotion. There's no strict formula, but after a ton of reps, I usually can tell which shots will work better in black and white. After going through that subjective pass, you'll land on a smaller pool. My edits already lean high contrast, so they translate well, but with black and white, I like to push it even further, so spiking the clarity, boosting the texture, and cranking the contrast. I want the whites to be glowing and the shadows near pitch black. These edits are usually subtle. Sometimes I'll add a background mask to darken the scene, or adjust global sliders to get a balance that's right. All the black and whites were looking good, so I export them to the same folder with the same settings, just adding a B and W to the N to mark them. With 25 monochrome shots in the mix, that brings us to a clean 200 deliverables. And if you're a player on the men's team scrolling through SmugMug looking for your next IG post, this is exactly how they will show up in the final upload. Colors up front with the black and whites in the final stretch. That wraps up the full editing workflow. Is back to the day job for me, design by day, edits by night. If you want more in-depth tutorials such as advanced masking, composition techniques, or my full black and white process, make sure to drop a comment down below and subscribe for videos like this every single Friday. Until next time.